Okay, Vrushab. So before we continue, let me just confirm this. This is your tier 2 discussion round, right?
Yes.
And you are in for React.js.
Hmm.
Okay, great, good. Okay, Vrushab, please tell me about yourself, technical background.
Okay, so I have been working on React.js for last 4 years now since my internship, and I have worked on a couple of projects from different domain, which includes the uh, banking domain and IoT domain, e-commerce, then healthcare, uh, and my main role and responsibility was creating the UI components from scratch, and apart from that the project maintenance, bug fixing, and web service API integrations. Sometime I also worked on the backend in Node.js too, so I have little bit of knowledge of Node.js too, and making the UI responsive.
Okay, so total years of experience in React.js. Again, please.
Yes, it is of 4 years.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, Vrushab. Please share something about interesting or challenging that you have found during the development phase of React.js. Any feature or any functionality, something like that.
Mm, okay. So first thing was when I was trying to convert or upgrade the version of React from React 15 to 16. So that was bit difficult and exciting as well for me, because our old code base was in React 15.x, and now due to some reasons we were migrating it to the React 16.x. So at that time means and that was in 2019 actually. So at that time I was also new to the React. So in that
Mm-hmm.
phase I faced some difficulties, but somehow I was able to do that. And yeah, so that is
So,
the one incident actually in which I have faced the most difficulties.
yeah. So, how did you resolve that one? Did you go through
Yeah, I
for
have
a
gone through the lots
it?
of links from the Stack Overflow
Mm.
and the documents that React have provided. And there are some tools provided by Facebook itself that we can run, and most of the things are done by those tools. But the things which that tool cannot do, we have to do it manually. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, that's good. Yeah. So, Rishabh, we will talk about JavaScript, React.js, and then we will have 10 to 15 minutes for the practical round.
Okay.
In that, you need to perform practical and need to do your screen share.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about JavaScript. Can you tell me the difference between the arrow function and the traditional function?
The arrow function and the traditional function.
Correct.
Okay, so uh, the main difference is that the this from the arrow function directly points to its parent, where that is not case in the traditional function, and that is why earlier we used to use the bind in React class components, but when arrow function while using the arrow function we do not need to do that. So that is the main difference. And apart from that, using arrow functions we can return I mean we can write the single line arrow function in which we are not doing the much things. And the syntactical difference is there, like we use the arrow keyword.
Yeah. Can you please write the syntax in this chat window over here?
Sorry,
The arrow function.
just
Can you please write the syntax for the arrow function in this chat window?
yeah, yeah, sure. Just my mouse is somehow yeah started.
Yeah, please.
So cost, demo. So anything do you want me to write anything inside it, or just
Just any function that comes in your mind with the arrow function. Just write it over here in this chat window.
yeah, I have pasted I mean yeah.
Okay. Okay. Please tell me about async and await. What are those?
Actually, so whenever we want to
Mhm.
perform some asynchronous operation. We can use the async await. It is just a syntactical sugar for the promises. So wherein
Mm-hmm.
we can use async and await keywords, and it is basically it will make that particular block of code in synchronous way. It will wait until that some asynchronous operation is not happening. So it is basically alternative to the callback function that we used to use those functions earlier.
Okay. Can you please write the async along with that the syntax that you gave me in this chat window?
Yeah, sure. I'll just copy paste that
Mm-hmm.
and I'll add the async here and inside the body. So whenever we want, we can use that
Mm-hmm.
await keyword.
Okay. In the JavaScript, let's say I want to do something right after the 10 second. So basically, I want to give a delay. How do I do that?
We can use the timer functions available. We
Mhm.
can use the set timeout for that. So we will be
Okay.
passing second argument in milliseconds.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And let's say you have done the set of the set timeout, right?
mhm,
So in the near future, after 10 seconds, it's going to be happen.
mhm.
Now here is the scenario that very first 5 second, after very first 5 second, there is no need to execute that thing anymore. So we just want to avoid that thing. How do we avoid that?
Sorry, can you please come back? I mean, can you please repeat?
How do you avoid the set timeout that you have that has been set off?
How to clear?
Please come again.
I didn't get your question.
Yeah, so set timeout, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has been set off. So in the next 10 seconds, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But before that,
Mm-hmm.
you realize you don't need to do that anymore. So you want to avoid that happening in the future. So in the so
Okay.
you want to avoid that set timeout. How do you avoid that?
Okay. So what we can do, we can clear it. So when we use the set timeout, we get one. We can store its interval. I mean that value, and we can use the clear timeout function to flush that set timeout.
Okay. Same scenario with the interval. In the case of interval, how do we do that?
Yeah, same similar thing. Means I have done the similar thing to clear out the interval or set timeout, using the clear
Mhm.
interval for the interval functions and using the clear timeout for the set timeout function.
Okay. Yeah. Let me write it for you something in this chat window. Please take a look. Okay. For this, can you guess the output?
Oh, so var f is equal to string, let a is equal to 1, 8 plus 1, 9 plus 1, 10.
Okay. And how do you come to that conclusion?
Uh, I'm just confused about this first
Mhm.
string plus string, but
And what's your assumption? What will happen with the plus app?
so it is a string basically. So
Mhm.
it won't affect it. It will convert it to the number.
Mhm.
Means I'm not sure about this, but that is my assumption. And for rest of the things, it is clear. For a, it is 1, and we are adding
Okay.
1 to it. So if
And how about this one?
see more console log f plus, yeah, then it will be 10 because internal type conversion will happen, and that string will be converted into the number.
For the second
Yeah,
for
right.
the second text that I put, right? Are you sure it will convert into number or it will convert into string?
It will convert it into the number.
So
But
output
because
will be 10.
in second console log we are adding 8 plus, I mean, f plus a plus 1.
Yeah, okay, fine. So you're aware of the idea that if you concat the string, it won't be the normal behavior, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So that will be like 8 plus 2. So it will be 82, something like that.
yeah.
Okay, again, so this is, okay, can you please tell me the difference between let, where, const?
Yes, sure. So let and const are introduced in ES6. So
Mhm.
basically they are block scoped, and const is for using the constant variable, I mean assigning. If you want do not if we do not want to reassign the value, then we can go for const. But the main difference is that we cannot use let or const before initializing or declaring them, just like we can do with var. And this
Mhm.
is due to the
And
hoisting
what is
thing.
the hoisting?
Yeah, right, this is due to the hoisting thing. So whenever we write any JavaScript code, hoisting happens with the functions and the variables. So in that case, variables are replaced with the undefined by default, but that does not happen with the let and const. So that is why whenever we try to access the variables, we get the undefined, but in case of let and const, we get the error.
Does hoisting has to anything with the arrow function behavior differently than the traditional function?
Yes, yes, it has, because arrow function we are assigning function to a variable. So if we are trying to assign, if since it's depend, I mean, if we are using var to declare arrow function, then undefined will get assigned to that function name. But if we are using let or const, then we will get the reference error.
Okay. What is the closure functions?
So closure function means whenever I mean the inner function is enclosed in the variable environment of the outer function. Just a minute. Yeah. So inner. Am I audible to you? I mean clearly, because some.
Yeah, there is some voice in
Yeah,
the
right,
background,
in the
right?
background, right.
Yeah.
So inner function is enclosed in the variable environment of outer function. So whenever the outer function returns, we can still access the variables within the inner function provided by the outer function. So that environment is closure basically.
And what are the generator functions?
Okay, so generator functions, I haven't used them much, but I know the concept. Like we can pause the execution in between, and we can pass the control somewhere else. We can perform some action that whatever we want, and we can again start from the point where we left. So this is the concept of generator functions. I have used this while using the Saga basically.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about React.
Mhm.
Can you please tell me difference between class component and functional component?
Yeah, sure. So inside functional component, we can use state variable using hooks, and that is the main difference. Apart from that, we use both the things to create the React components. And yeah, I think that one more thing is there. One thing we cannot do using the functional component, we cannot add the error boundaries, because the lifecycle hooks are not available for the functional component for adding the error boundaries. Apart from that,
You mentioned lifecycle hooks are not available for functional component.
no, not lifecycle hooks, which will be alternative to the lifecycle methods which are provided for class components for adding the error
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. So alternative to those methods, we do not have the hooks till now. So
Yeah, okay. So, talking about the class component, can you name the lifecycle method names?
yes, so there are basically three phases: mounting, updating, and unmounting. In unmounting, we have the component will unmount. Just a minute. And in mounting, we have component. Uh, we had component will mount, but now it is replaced by the get state from derived props. Sorry, that is a static method. And in updating phase, we have uh, get that static method, get state from derived props. I might be mispronounce, I mean taking the wrong name, but that is static method, get state from derived props, I guess. And after that we have the uh, should component update. After that we have render, and after that component
Okay.
update.
Yeah, so there are three phases like that. Okay. How do we update the state variables in the
In
class component?
using the set state method provided, or the force update.
Okay. Set state and
Force update.
force submit.
Yeah.
Mhm. What's the difference?
So basically set state is a synchronous operation. So
Mhm.
React does combine the couple of set state and execute them at a time. So using force update, we can forcefully update the React DOM. It will immediately execute that method.
Hmm. Okay. So talking about set state, let's say you are updating a name state variable as a
Mm-hmm.
set state. So you are doing set state name Sachin,
Mm-hmm.
for example. Now you want to do the console.log
Mm-hmm.
this.state.name.
Mm-hmm.
So question is, where do you put the console.log so you will get the updated value right after the set state happens?
So there are a couple of options for it, but if I want to see that immediately,
Mm-hmm.
then I can pass the callback function to the set state and I can console log it over there,
Mm-hmm.
or else I
Okay.
can console log in the render. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. What do you use for the API call?
earlier I was using the Axios, but on my recent project I have used Fetch.
Fetch. And why you want to switch to fetch?
Uh, so basically it is lightweight, and it is serving all the
Mm-hmm.
purpose that Access was serving, and it is provided natively, and that is why it was the decision of our team lead, so we are just
Mm-hmm.
following it. And it is I mean we are able to do everything pretty much, not an
Mm-hmm.
issue. Yeah.
Okay, here is the scenario in the
Mm-hmm.
API. Suppose you are calling a REST API, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you are expecting a response in like 4 or 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is the same scenario, just like set timeout that I gave to you.
Mm-hmm.
With 4 to 5 seconds, before 4 to 5 seconds, you realize you don't need to call that API anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You want to avoid that call, or you want to avoid the response. Is there any way to do that, and how? Let's say user presses back button or something like that happens.
There is a way to do it. We can do it. I mean we can terminate the execution of our API call, but right now I am not able to recall that how we can do that. So
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you please explain the scenarios of the success cases and the failure cases when you use the fetch? General question.
uh, success or failure cases in the
Mm-hmm.
sense, um, like
For
let
the
me tell you what I know. So success case means if I'm trying to log in, so I have entered the right email ID and password, so it it will go to the backend server that will check whether that particular user exists or not. And if it exists, then it will give us a success, maybe 200. And in case if I am entering the wrong credentials, something like that, then in that case that will be that server can respond us back saying that invalid credentials or something like that. And if suppose I am entering the user that is not exist at, so in that case server can give us response accordingly. But in some another other cases, like if I am trying to retrieve something from the database, which or I'm passing some parameters, but if at the backend side there are some checks on these parameters and I'm passing the wrong parameters or incorrect, then I'll get the bad request or uh,
Okay, so with the scenario of the fetch API call,
mhm,
let's say the URL that you have passed for the API call, it's not correct one.
mhm.
So which will happen? It will go to then or it will go to catch.
Catch, it will go to catch, and we'll get
Okay.
that.
And probably exception would be,
Yeah.
what kind of exception would be there?
uh, the resource not found, or something like that actually. uh,
Mhm. Okay, yeah. Let's say with API call, you need to upload a very big
okay.
file that is worth 100 MB, 200 MB. How
Hmm.
do you do that? Any idea or any?
So till now, what I'm not sure about the backend, but from the front end, what I have done is converted whatever file I want to upload in the blob, and I have uploaded that thing. But what else? Um,
Okay.
uh,
Okay, that's good actually. So let's have this scenario. You are going to convert a file into blob or some shape,
mhm,
or you're gonna do some CPU intensive operation, basically, right?
mhm.
How do you do it in a way that you won't get your UI stuck?
Okay, so most of the time I show the spinner while doing some heavy operations. I mean, if the heavy operation is going on, we generally show the spinner at that time, and whenever that operation does, we just remove the spinner. But
Okay. Have you ever
I
faced
mean,
scenario where your UI gets stuck or glitch or something like that because the operation is heavy?
no, but I had faced some different issues if I'm using hook incorrectly. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, I
Like what calling
like
repeatedly.
yeah, right, exactly. So one time what happened, I just pass the same. I mean, whenever I call the API, I use three state for it. The API initiation, its success case, and its failure case. But by mistakenly, because of copy paste, I passed the same type for the initialization as well as success. So it got stuck into the cycle. So same API call was happening again and again, and due to that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But apart from that,
You realize the reason why it was happening? Did
yeah,
you find out?
yeah, I find out. But it took some like 10 to 15 minutes because I was not getting why it is happening. So
Mm-hmm.
after
And the
10,
reason?
yeah, that is the reason, because I passed the same type to the success function as well as the initialization function. And
Mm-hmm.
so initialization was passing control to the then block, and inside then I was calling the success function, but type of success function was also the same type as the initialization. So it was calling itself again and again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Talking about hooks, can you give the name of hooks?
Sorry.
Yeah, there is some noise.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, the question is, can you please give the name of the hooks? How many hooks are there?
Okay, uh, so I have used, I'll tell you about the hooks I know or I have used. So I have used the use
Mm-hmm.
state hook, use effect hook, use reducer, use context, and what yeah, use callback and use memo. So these are the hooks that I use frequently.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Use ref. Have you used that one?
I haven't used it, but I know whenever we want to take the control of the particular element, we can use the use ref hook.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Okay. In the class component, we do have these two lifecycle methods, which is component did update
Mm-hmm.
and component will unmount.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have those two situations in the functional component?
Yes, we can use effect for that. So it has the second parameter as the dependency array. So whenever we want to do something or perform some side effect, so that depends on some state variables, we can include those variable in dependency array. So whenever those variable will be updated, our effect will run. And inside and in that use effect we can just return the function, the cleanup function we can say. So whatever cleanup functionality we want to do, we can just do it over there.
And the return stands for will unmount.
Yes, right. That return stand for component will unmount.
Okay. Talking about these hooks, can we use the hooks in the class component?
No.
And if you're going to use it, what will happen?
Generally, if we are using ESLint, actually, it give us an error that you cannot do this.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it
Okay.
won't work actually.
And for the functional component,
Mhm.
can we just use it the use state, or do we need to import explicitly? We need to import something else as well.
In functional component, I always import the use state. Without that, it gives me the error that use state is
Okay.
not there. Yeah.
You know the difference between these two? Let me write it for you.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Please take a look at the chat window.
Hmm. So one is the uh, default export, and one is the unnamed, I mean named export. So first one is named one, in which we are exporting the specific component with specific name, and in the second one we are exporting one default thing, and that we can catching in the item.
Okay. Have you worked with the Redux?
Yes.
Okay. Can you please explain why do we need Redux? We can do it without Redux as well, right? Why do we need?
So basically Redux is store management library, so that we can use if we are working in application and the store management is bit going bit difficult, or it is becoming larger and larger time by time. So we can use the Redux to centralize the things, so we can keep the store at in central place. So it happens like if I am clicking on any button, so you can dispatch the action, and that action will update the reducer, and reducer will just update the that store central object, and we can access that store in our any component that we want, but generally we do it in our container component basically. So we
Mhm.
subscribe to the store.
So in the Redux,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm hearing my own voice.
Oh.
Okay, can you please check your microphone?
mm, Sorry.
Please just check your microphone. I
Okay.
think it's better now.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So talking about Redux, map states to props.
Mm-hmm.
What it does?
Map state to props, it will give us access to the object from the store in our component where we are using that method. So it is
Okay.
parameter to the connect function that will update our props and the props that we want from the store.
Okay. So while using the Redux architecture, let's say there is an API call
Mm-hmm.
giving you the data. You cannot just render that data on your screen.
Mm-hmm.
First, you need to do some computation on those data.
Mm-hmm.
Then after you can render those.
Mm-hmm.
So in this Redux architecture, which file or which where the place you will prefer to compute those things?
So I'll do it in reducer file, so
Mm-hmm.
where I'll get the response. I can just filter out it over there, or whatever operation I want to do I can do it over there, and I can just push the final data into the store.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In the React, how do we identify that what other library has been installed in this existing project?
Using packet.json, we have all the entries
Okay.
over there.
Mm-hmm. Does any other information gives us package.json?
uh, yes, like which dependencies are there, and the scripts, and uh, name, versions.
Mm.
uh,
Okay. So in React, how do we install one package?
so npm installer and using an or npm.
And how do we remove one?
Same, we have the commands from that, either uninstall or remove.
Okay. Do you know what are the .env files?
Yes, so whenever we want to, like if I have used in a way, if I want to give build to the staging and the production and the some other
Mhm.
environment, so we can, what we can do, we can create env files. Sorry.
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, so
Env file.
we can use the env files, uh, one per environment, and we can mention our the our variables, whatever you want to, whatever we want to be replaced at the runtime. So how we can access them using the process dot env dot the variable name that we are mentioning in the env file.
Okay. Okay, Rushabh. So let's come to the practical part.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Please do your screen share. I will put that practical in this chat window.
Okay, sure.
Please take a look and then I will explain it to you.
Okay. Is it visible to you?
Just a moment. I can see your screen. You can prefer any IDE you want, but I would
Mm-hmm.
suggest to go with the sandbox IO React.js.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, please take a look at the.
Okay, I'm just copying the. Told me that is going to finish in 5 minutes. So let's see. Okay. So
Mhm.
so
Okay,
we are going.
let me cut.
Sorry.
Let me continue. Explain.
Yeah.
So basically, you need input field and button
Mm-hmm.
that you will use to
Mm-hmm.
do the entries like Joy, Daniel, George, Red, right? So below the input field and button, it will display over there. So for example, if you do enter Joy,
Mm-hmm.
then submit button,
Mm-hmm.
it will display one dash Joy. Then again you do Daniel
Mm-hmm.
and submit button, it will display two dash Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
But here are the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
If you do read as in capital,
Mm-hmm.
so that will display, that text itself will display in red color.
Okay.
If you do enter the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 and then hit the submit button,
Mm-hmm.
you need to display alerts saying that you cannot have numbers.
Okay.
Another one is that after you hit the submit button, your input field should get clear.
After hitting the submit button, input should be added in this list.
The input field itself should get clear. For example, if your input field you have typed Sachin, then hit the submit button. After hitting the submit button, Sachin will be gone from over there from the input field.
Sachin will be gone.
From the input field. So it
Mm-hmm.
won't
Okay.
display
Okay.
the input
Mm-hmm.
field.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, and you need to display output just like this, one dash joy, then
Okay.
four dash red. Only this will be in a red color if user types in capital RED.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It
Okay,
is.
so we will 10 to 15 minutes. You can prefer any ID you want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we let's continue.
So we are going to
Okay.
run this.
Yes, and that's why I'm suggest that you need to use Sandbox IO from the browser.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. I'll do that. So
Search like this: sandbox space io space react.
Okay.
Not this. Okay, so here is your app.js file, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you edit something, it will affect right over there.
Right. Okay.
Also, there is a console tab at the bottom in the black strip, and there is a refresh button over there. You can use those.
Okay.
Please continue. We will have 10 to 15 minutes.
I need to just work out with this alignment, but that's fine.
Yeah,
The
sure.
main
We
the main thing is here validating the input. So uh, what I'll do here, I'll need some regular expression basically to filter out or to check
Mhm.
whether the user is typing is text or the uh, number. So it will be, it will look like something.
Okay,
uh,
yeah, Rishabh, we do have a time limit, so we over 15 minutes and also the extra time. Um, Please copy paste your source code in this chat window over here. I need that to evaluate.
okay. Paste. Okay. Copy, paste. Yes.
Okay, Rishabh, so we will finish the interview now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, TA or HR will get back to you with the feedback. Okay?
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rishabh. It was nice talking to you
Yeah.
and have a good day.
Yeah. Same
Bye.
to you.